Hi, my name's John Smart, and I am going to share with you the top 7 anti-patterns and patterns for better ways of working, for improving how you do what you do, and for delivering better value sooner, safer, and happier. First of all, let's look at why. Why change? What's the big picture? What's going on? Why are so many companies improving their ways of working? Every 50 to 60 years, there are repeating technology-led revolutions. Starting with textiles, we have the first industrial revolution. Then we have the age of steam and railways. Then the age of steel and heavy engineering. Then the age of oil and mass production. And now we're in the age of digital. With each of these industrial revolutions, there is investment in the new technology. There's a hype cycle. And then there is a bubble that bursts. So that dotted line, those dotted lines down the middle, those are recessions. Those are bubbles that burst. And then on the right, we have a new normal. We have new organizations who are leading, who tend to have the highest market capitalization. And we have management innovation. So starting with the first industrial revolution, we have factory systems, Cromford Mills in Derbyshire. We have the first factory. We have more than 1,000 people working in this factory. Previously, it was mostly agriculture, or it was the domestic putting out system, people weaving in their cottages, weaving at home. But now we've got extreme role-based specialization. We've got very narrow roles, and we have work passing between these roles, and we have long working hours. We have people who are now being managed by the clock, whereas previously it was more to do with daylight and the seasons. So we have factory systems for the very first time. Very much order giver, order taker, superior subordinate way of working. And then we have middle management. So in the age of steam and railways, we have in particular Daniel McCallum, who is the general superintendent of the New York and Erie Railroad. We have the world's first writing around middle management and delegating authority to managers who were physically separated down the rail line. It wasn't possible to manage by walking around like it was in a textile mill, and it would take too long for a decision to be made by someone back in the head office. When you've got a railroad which is hundreds of miles long, it would take too long to jump on a horse, ride all your way back to the head office to make a decision. So there was more autonomy, there was more delegation. We see the beginning of multidisciplinary teams in an industrial context. And we also see the use of data as well. So Daniel McCallum wrote a lot about needing data feedback loops so that the organization could continuously improve. That is a lesson which many organizations could relearn from the past. And then we have scientific management. So scientific management, this is Frederick Winslow Taylor, is the most well-known person who advocated for scientific management. He was standing on the shoulders of giants. This was very much about optimizing for the output from workers. Scientific management involved a stopwatch. This was even more order giver, order taker, because workers were given job orders. They were told exactly what to do, exactly how long tasks should take, exactly what constituted a good day's work. If you did less than that, you got paid less. If you did more than that, you got paid more. Very much autocratic, very much separating thinking from doing, planning from execution. And then we have Fordism and the Toyota production system. So with Fordism, we have the moving assembly line for the first time. We have the beginnings of flow production. So the car is moved to the parts rather than moving the parts to the car. And then the Toyota production system that actually started in the 1950s, in the mid 1950s, and much more respect for people with the Toyota production system. Continuous improvement, a focus on flow, automation, humans and machines in harmony. So much more of a focus on continuous improvement and people using their brains, unlike the previous industrial revolutions. And now we have agile and lean. So in the age of digital, we have both agile and lean. Lean is a word that an American, John Krafkic, gave to the Toyota production system in the book, The Machine That Changed the World. And actually in his master's thesis, he called it lean production. And lean production suits a context of repetitive, knowable work. So we can have standardization because it's repetitive and it's knowable. And again, we want to optimize for flow, the flow of value. We want to eliminate waste. We want to have respect for people. We want to build quality in. And so that suits repetitive, knowable work. And for unique, unknowable work, of which we have much more of now in the age of digital, this is the sweet spot for agility, for agile. It's unknowable. There are unknown unknowns, so we want to have multidisciplinary teams. We want to minimize time to learning. We want experimentation. We want the cheapest cost of failure, the cheapest cost of learning. And this is the sweet spot for agile. So it's both agile and lean. Important point, it's not agile everything. It's not lean everything. You need to optimize your approach based on the type of work you're doing, on the domain of work. Is it unknowable or is it knowable? A good question to ask is, how many times have we done this exact thing before in this exact context with these exact people? If the answer is never, then it's quite likely you'll need to optimize for agility for small multidisciplinary teams, a clear goal, optimize for experimentation, for early learning. Don't standardize. Standardization will kill things prematurely, will kill innovation. If it's something we do 1,000 times a day, then that's more of the sweet spot for lean. And work moves around the domain. So you might agile create a new product and then you might lean run it. You might do something then 1,000 times a day. You might have a shallow dip into chaos. Something might go wrong. You need to fix a problem. For example, the sticky accelerator problem that Toyota had, where cars wouldn't stop accelerating. A shallow dip into chaos, you have an incident, an outage, a problem, you have to fix it. You're back into agile, agile fix, agile recreate, and then back into lean again. So an important point is work doesn't stay in one domain. So we need to optimize our approach to the work based on the domain of work that we're in. And in terms of role-based silos, these were first introduced at scale in 1771. And for a lot of organizations today, role silos are still prevalent. Organizations are still partying like it's 1771. This was the beginning of extreme role-based specialization and division of labor. Prior to this, it was at a much smaller scale. Adam Smith wrote about it in The Wealth of Nations. There's some writing about a pin factory and specialization, but that wasn't at a large scale. It really was Sir Richard Arkwright and Cromford Mills, where we have role silos and work passing at a large scale. Project management was introduced around about the early 1900s. Henry Gantt, creator of the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart used to be called the Manday record, the Manday chart, and that the lines in the Gantt chart were, have you done enough of your activity today? So this was the planning department saying to workers how much work you need to do today. Have you machined enough parts? Have you shoveled enough coal into the boiler? Whatever the repetitive task is you're doing. And if you haven't done your Monday's quota, you either have a financial penalty or you need to keep on shoveling. If you've done more than that, then you might get a small bonus. You might have piece rate pay where you might get more money. The key point here is the origins of the Gantt chart and the origins of project management come from a repetitive, knowable domain of work with an autocratic, dictatorial order giver, order taker, the project manager, the rate fixer, the planning department, telling workers exactly what to do and how long you have to do it. In my experience, this is still alive and kicking in organisations today. I still see situations where we have project management or product management, whatever the label is, who are determining plans up front. And there are still situations today where we have project managers or other roles who are determining how long people have to do work without involving the people who are doing the work themselves. So that comes from the early 1900s. And this is the first Ford factory in Detroit. So picture in the top left, these are workers making wheels for the Ford Model T. More than 50 languages were spoken in the factory, and it didn't matter because people didn't need to speak a common language because you had standardized work. All you did all day long was you made wheels for the Ford Model T. You didn't have a view of the end-to-end flow of value. You didn't have a view of the finished car. You didn't have a view of the customer, the consumer. And all you knew was the bit you were doing. Top right, that's people making a petrol tank or a gas tank. Bottom left, making magnetos. Super specialized. You just do your narrow task day in, day out. This is where we've come from. Work for the last 4 industrial revolutions has been repetitive and it has been knowable. And this is why we work the way we do today. This is why when you join an organization, you fall into the ways of working for an organization. Especially when you're straight out of school or college or university. This is just how we work. This is how things work. We have big bang annual planning. We spend 6 months of the year doing annual plans and putting together project plans. We already box ourselves into these are the projects we're going to do next year. It takes months of effort to do bottom up, top down budget estimates and forecasting and top down cuts and bottom up replanning. And then we have commitments to these funded projects which are going to run. But we've put these project plans together at the point of having learnt the least, and it's for unique work that we haven't done before. It's inherently unknowable. It's not surprising that the success rate of projects is so low. We are treating unique, unknowable work we have never done before like it is knowable. We then focus on the project plan, on the milestones, on the RAG status, and it's why didn't you do this thing by this date? Why is it red? And there often is a culture of fear and shame about a red RAG status. And usually bad news is buried until it is too late because people don't want to admit to being late to a plan that you can't possibly predict the future. And this is the reason why, because we've come from the last 4 industrial revolutions where work has been repetitive and knowable. We are misapplying ways of working from the past to today where work is increasingly unique and unknowable. So today, in the age of digital, more and more of the work we do is unique. More and more of the work is not knowable. It's not repetitive. In particular, for software, for technology, we don't write the same code a million times. We don't keep churning out the same code. You write it once, you run it, you realise how you could have written it better, you refactor it, and then it runs trillions of times. And we also have robots which have automated physical manual labour as well. So if you imagine car assembly, now we have red robots or yellow robots on the assembly line who are making cars and who complement humans in the assembly of cars. We have much more automation. So the work that we humans are doing in companies, less and less is manual because we automate, whether it's knowledge work or physical work, we automate the repetitive tasks. So increasingly, we are spending our time on unique, unknowable work, on what are the things we're going to automate, what are we going to program. And with the rise of generative AI, this is going to be even more the case as we focus on what is unique and unknowable, and we will be more productive, as has always been the case in terms of evolution of tools, evolutions of technology revolutions. So we need to optimize for unknowability. Determining a project plan at the point of having learnt the least, with late learning, with a big bang type approach, with we're going to do all of the planning and then we're going to do all of the design and then all of the build, and then all of the test, and then we've got a big bang go live. That does not optimize for unknowability. In fact, you would be hard pressed to come up with a more risky approach to change delivery than that. And if you go back to the first documented reference of waterfall, a white paper written by William Royce, in the white paper it says this approach is risky and invites failure. You turn the page to page 2 and it describes an iterative approach. A waterfall approach has never been optimal to unique unknowable work. It is a thinking error. If we want to optimize for outcomes, we shouldn't be treating work like it is knowable. We can have a vision. Absolutely, we should have a vision. We should plant some flags on mountains. We should know where we're heading. We should be clear on the outcome that we're going after, and we should allow the output to pivot. So we need to optimize for unknowability. This means multidisciplinary teams. It means swarming. It means minimizing time to learning, minimizing time to value. It means experimentation. It means we need to have psychological safety. We need to be able to fail safely. Safe failure is quick, cheap, and unique. And this all massively reduces risk. It massively reduces delivery risk because we are learning quickly. We are then pivoting so that we can realize the most value in the shortest time with the least amount of effort and the least amount of waste. So this is the big macro why. This is why organizations are changing their ways of working, is to optimize for unknowability. Now I'm going to go on to the how to get there, and I'm going to share some patterns and anti-patterns. I'm going to share the top 7 anti-patterns and patterns. These are lessons learnt the hard way. These are lessons learnt by myself. These are mistakes that I've made, but also these are learnings from 40 organizations, and there are repeating anti-patterns and there are repeating patterns. There is no one size fits all. There is no playbook. There is no cookie cutter, because every organization is unique and your context is unique, your environment is unique. However, there are approaches that usually don't help, and there are approaches that usually help. So an anti-pattern is a headwind. It makes a hard job harder. A pattern is a tailwind. It makes a hard job slightly less hard. It's still a hard job because it's about people and behavior change, but nevertheless you have a bit of a tailwind and it makes change slightly less hard. So we're going to look at the top, what I consider to be the top 7 anti-patterns and patterns. The first one is focus on outcomes, and this is number 1 for a reason, again because we're optimizing for unknowability. So we have to focus on the outcome we're going after so that we can pivot to maximize that outcome. And this applies to how we improve our ways of working as well, not only what it is we're doing, but how we do it. Previously, one of my job titles in the past was head of the agile transformation. This was across about 100,000 people. And in year 1, I would meet with people and I would say, hi, my name is John and I'm here to make you do agile, whether you like it or not, because the executive committee said so. Now, obviously, I wasn't literally saying that, but figuratively, that's what I was saying. And the focus was all on the A word, agile. Very clearly, that was a mistake because we had cargo cult. We had people who were doing agile, but not being agile. We had new labels on the same old behavior, and the outcomes didn't improve. We got to the end of year 1. The good news is we were measuring the outcomes. We just hadn't made them the headline. So I could see that the outcomes weren't improving. So we pivoted and we made the outcomes the headline, and these are the outcomes that we measured. This is the headline, and these outcomes are outcomes that I have found to work at every organization since. The first one is better, which is quality, and this is about building quality in, not inspecting it in later. So not a case of I'll burn the toast and you scrape. Instead, let's not burn the toast. The second one is value. OKRs are a good way to measure value, objectives and key results, where the KR, the key results, are the measures of value. The next one is sooner. This is the heart of agile and lean. This is minimizing time to learning. It is lead time, throughput and flow efficiency. And then we have safer. Safer is continuous compliance. It's agile, not fragile. So this is, for example, information security, data privacy. This is the control environment. This is about discipline. This is around governance. And this is speed and control, not speed out of control, and also not control with a lack of speed. And then we have happier, and happier is happier customers, colleagues, citizens and climate, because improving ways of working should not be at any cost to the planet or to society. So here we have a balanced set of outcomes. The word balance is important here because organisations that do this badly, if you only focus on sooner, quality goes down and happiness goes down, because sometimes if you do it badly, it's about some organisations will try to work people harder rather than fixing the system of work, rather than removing impediments in the system of work or improving the culture, the behaviours. So if you do it badly, quality goes down and happiness goes down. If you do it well, you get into a virtuous upward circle. These things positively correlate. If you have smaller change, you tend to have higher quality, because if something does go wrong, it's a whimper rather than a bang. Also, it's complexity that fits in your head, so you're less likely to have something go wrong when it's more smaller change. You have happier colleagues. It's a more engaging way of working because you get a bit of a dopamine hit more frequently. It's like, oh, we did a thing, we released some value. So you get more of a positive feedback loop. And obviously you'll have happier consumers because you're getting value into the hands of your consumers, whether they are internal or external, on a more frequent cadence. And likewise, it's safer because, again, you've got more smaller change. So again, if something goes wrong, it's a whimper rather than a bang. So you get into a virtuous circle. The size of the prize. So after 3.5 years across 100,000 people, we saw a 20 times improvement in quality. That was a 20 times reduction in failure demand, things going wrong. We saw on average a 3 times improvement on time to value. The best teams were 20 times quicker. Now the specific measurement there was the 85th percentile in lead times, the time that you start work on something, an item of value, to that item of value being in the hands of the consumer. So if you were to plot that on a histogram and take the 85th percentile, so you've got an 85% confidence of being able to get value into the hands of a consumer within that time period, that was the measure, and that was the thing that was 3 times quicker after 3.5 years and 20 times quicker for the most improved teams. For safer, we saw a positive compliance trend, so fewer things were going wrong. There was a reduced impact radius, so if something did go wrong, there was less impact. And for people in the roles of information security, data privacy, fraud, anti-money laundering, etc., people were spending 80% of their time proactively rather than 80% of their time reactively firefighting. And then for colleague engagement, we had the highest ever scores. That was an external third-party survey, been running for the last 25 years. And we had a positive trend on client net promoter scores. So we had happier people. And that's my primary driver, my primary purpose is more engaging ways of working. It's a more this is a more rewarding way of working. There are more rewarding ways of working. The old way of working, waterfall, big batch, role silos, work passing, is not as engaging and it's not as rewarding. It's far more rewarding to be in multidisciplinary teams with a close alignment to the value and to the consumer, delivering value frequently. It's much more engaging. So that's the size of the prize. The anti-pattern is agile, lean, DevOps product for the sake of agile, lean, DevOps or product. It's not agile for the sake of agile, lean for the sake of lean, product for the sake of product. Just watch out about, we are rolling out a thing, we are doing a thing. Be super crystal clear what the goal or the goals are you're going after. Like I said, I have found better, value, sooner, safer, happier to apply to every organisation that we have worked with or spoken with. Quality, value, time to value, safety and happiness. Very important to measure, visualize and make transparent your data, because if there's no data feedback loops, you can't improve. These are deliberately fuzzy screenshots because this is production data. On the left, we have a management dashboard that used to go out once a month. We have the teams of teams are the rows, and the columns are the few measures that matter. The image on the right is a screenshot of a dashboard, over 100 measures in there, categorized under better, sooner, safer, happier. And you can look at the team level, the team of teams level, the team of teams. You can aggregate it up to a business level, to an organizational level. You can look at correlations. You can look at cumulative flow diagrams. So you can really do some analysis here to see what's going on. So this is a success pattern, which is a dedicated data focus on the how measures. Number 2 out of 7 is achieve big through small, not big through big. Smaller is faster and bigger is slower. This is my favourite definition of what is agility. It is think big, start small, learn fast. Think big, what's the clear goal, what's the clear outcome we're going after, so that we have a direction to head in. Start small, we need to minimise time to learning. We need the thinnest possible slice of value and learning that we can possibly have. And we should use our brains collectively to figure out how we can make that as small as possible. For example, the rule of one. One customer, one change, one location in a production environment. What can we learn? And then we need to learn fast. And the reason we need to learn fast is because the domain of work we're in is for unique change is unknowable. The only way we can make the unknowable knowable is by acting. So we need to learn quickly, and then that enables us to pivot. So we need to think big, start small, learn fast, and then reflect, adapt, pivot, and go again. And this is what we want. We want the cheapest cost of failure. We want experiments. We want experiments that are quick, cheap, and unique. Fantastic. Now we know it doesn't work. And we don't want to take a big bang. In terms of rolling out better ways of working, in terms of adopting better ways of working, we should practice what we preach. Organisations that take a big bang type approach, you have this big green line, the Kubler-Ross curve. You have a peak of excitement or denial, you have a trough of disillusionment, and then eventually you climb out of the hole. If you climb out of the hole at time T2, typically that is 18 months, 24 months. Many organisations don't get to that point. The bigger the bang you do, the longer and deeper that trough. There are organisations who try to do big bangs who give up somewhere in the bottom of that trough. It's too much change too quickly. You can't force the pace of change. Far better to practice what we preach, exhibit agility. We haven't done this thing before in this context with these people in this organisation, so we should think big, start small, learn fast. That's the yellow line. We want to do lots of little J-curves, lots of little learnings, and we will get further faster. We will be able to pivot, and it is less risky. When you zoom out, change adopts an S-curve. This is how humans embrace change. We have your early adopters at the beginning, your champions at the beginning. We've got the most amount of unlearning to do. We've got the most amount of friction in an organisation. So we need to keep the gradient low to start with. It takes time to unlearn and relearn. Keep the gradient low Start 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams, 5 teams. Then once you've proven it, starting small, then you can start to increase the gradient in terms of adopting better ways of working. So then we can step up 5, 10, 15, 20 teams at a time, and then we can go 20, 30, 40, 50, and then we can go 100, 150, 200, and then 300, 400, 500, depending on the size of your organisation. And eventually, for whatever the change is, you'll reach a plateau, you'll start to top out, and then there'll be some new change coming through the pipeline. And you can have multiple S-curves. Multiple S-curves still add up to an S-curve. So you might be experimenting with, for example, OKRs in one area, with improved culture in another area. You can S-curve these in different parts of a company, and then you can divide and conquer. So then you can share your learnings across the organisation. So most importantly, keep the gradient low to start with. If you try to do too much too soon, you end up with new labels on the same old behaviour. This is a mistake that I've made. We tried to do too much too soon in year 1, and we had new labels on the same old behaviour. There was new language, there was new terminology, but the outcomes weren't improving. Things were still taking just as long as they were before. So you have to allow time, and you have to allow for unlearning and relearning. And again, you can't force the pace of change. And you can't force the pace of change because people have a limited velocity to unlearn and relearn. The pace of change is determined by the speed of unlearning. System 1, System 2, something like 65% of human behaviour is habitual, it's habit. We cannot force the pace of change. We have to read the tea leaves. The speed of unlearning is determined by the amount of psychological safety. So if you want to go faster, if you want to adopt better ways of working more quickly, the number one ingredient to be able to do that is the absence of fear. It is psychological safety. If there is fear, people won't experiment, no one will try anything, there will be no improvement. If there is psychological safety, however, then people will feel willing to experiment and will feel willing to intelligently fail. Again, intelligent failure is quick, cheap and safe. So we really have to ramp up psychological safety. The anti-pattern is think big, start big, learn slow, taking a big bang type approach, and having new labels on the same old behaviour. Number 3 out of 7 is invite over inflict, and not one size fits all. This is the diffusion of innovation curve. Everett Rogers, 1962, 508 studies went into this. We have our innovators on the left. Wow, shiny new thing. Then we have our early adopters. Then we have crossing the chasm. Then we have our early majority. Then we have our late majority, wondering what those weirdos are up to. Then we have our laggards who just want their fax machines back. Thank you very much. And the anti-pattern is, attention everyone, we're all going to go agile tomorrow, or we're all going to adopt the product operating model tomorrow, or we're all going to do Lean Six Sigma belt training tomorrow. Big banging it, because you will have innovators, you'll have champions, you'll have critics, you'll have laggards, you'll have people all over the curve. Instead, the pattern is identify your natural champions, identify your innovators, invite participation, invite people in, see who puts their hand up, and support those people, support the innovators, support the people on the left-hand side of this curve. The words convince and resistance shouldn't enter your vocabulary if you're going about change the right way. It's not about convincing anyone of anything. Find the champions, be clear what the outcomes are, and support your champions. Support the champions and prove it. Prove the benefits. And you can prove it through hard data and through storytelling. And a pattern here is to communicate. Communicate 3 more times than you think you need to, and you're a third of the way done. And what happens is The people who are sitting on the fence, the early majority and the late majority who are sitting there observing what's happening, you'll get a gravitational pull. Looks interesting. I'm in, because the water is warm and the people, there's demonstrable benefits. People are getting good outcomes. Ideally, there is also some recognition and reward as well. And I don't just mean financial, I mean verbal. So having a town hall, having your early adopters up on the stage, a verbal pat on the back, great job team, amazing improvement, generate a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. That's a strong driver for people. And change is social, so people look for social proof as well. So communicate, communicate 3 more times and you think you need to, and you're a third of the way done. You cannot over communicate, is my personal belief on this topic. And then, in my experience, you get to around about the 50%, 60% point on this curve, and people who are more conservative, people who maybe have less of a risk appetite, all of a sudden you get this tipping point. What I have realised is people who are a bit more conservative don't like being the odd ones out. The innovators on the left love being the odd ones out, in fact want to be the odd ones out, and the people on the right want to be in the flock, don't like being the odd ones out. And what I have observed is this rush, which is don't leave us behind, wait for me, we're in. Especially when you make it transparent, especially when it's visible in terms of outcomes and ways of working, who's adopted better ways of working, what are the outcomes that people are getting. You get this tipping point. And it's not one size fits all. So your practices, the practices at a team level or a team of teams level, should be your principles plus your context. So your guiding principles are common across contexts. For example, focus on flow, respect for people, experimentation. Those are some examples of guiding principles, and I've got some more coming up shortly. And then your context is unique. So your context includes your history. You might have some baggage. There are many organizations who have had failed transformations in the past, and there are certain words that can't be used. For example, an organization with 3 previous failed agile transformations, the A word is a dirty word. The last thing you want to do is use the A word. And so you adopt practices which cater to your context around improving outcomes. So, for example, one organization, it was a situation of adopting smaller waterfalls. So rather than the A word, instead of a 12-month waterfall, let's do a 6-month waterfall. Now let's do a 3-month waterfall. Now a 2-month waterfall. Now a 1-month waterfall. Before you knew it, people were sitting together in multidisciplinary teams, and people had adopted agile ways of working without using the A word. So this is all about optimizing for the outcomes in your context. So not everybody has to be doing everything the same way identically across an organization. Also, you'll have some teams which might comprise of 2 people doing something which is quite rapid and quite quick with a quick turnaround. You might have other areas with 300 people doing something which is at a much bigger scale, much more complex. You might have hardware plus software in the context of technology. You might have areas that have got nothing to do with technology. So it is an anti-pattern to apply a common set of practices across everybody. There are minimal viable guardrails. There are some things that are not negotiable, but then you optimize your practices to suit your context in order to optimize for the outcomes you're going after. The anti-pattern is inflicting the golden hammer. It's tempting if the only tool you have is a hammer to treat everything as if it was a nail. So just watch out for that anti-pattern. Number 4 out of 7 is leadership behaviour will make it or break it. I'm not normally binary about things. This one is an exception. This is always the number 1 impediment in surveys as to why organisations are either unable to improve their outcomes, or conversely do a great job of improving their outcomes. The number one determinant is always leadership behaviour. And it's not surprising, really, because this is what creates implicit and explicit incentives. Leadership behaviour, and this is leaders at all levels, in all roles. Just to be clear, this is not pointing up at them, whoever they are. This is you as a leader. Your behaviour as a leader, even if you're an individual contributor, affects people around you. It's what you recognise, it's what you reward, it's what you say is important. And so, of course, behaviour will make it or break it. The top 3 patterns around behaviour, in my opinion, number 1 is role modelling. Leaders go first. Not a case of, arms crossed around the table, go on, transform and tell me when you're done. I've seen leadership teams do that, and unsurprisingly, there is no change. So this is about role modelling. This is exhibiting courage and vulnerability. This is about experimentation and learning, recognising and rewarding experimentation and improvement and intelligent failure, learning. Secondly, nurturing an environment of psychological safety. As I've already said, if you have a culture of fear, there will be no improvement and there will be no learning. Things won't get any better because nobody will want to step out of line. And then third is an emergent mindset. An emergent mindset means treating the future as if it is unknowable, because in the context of unique work, it is unknowable. The opposite is a deterministic mindset, which is treating the future like it is predictable and knowable. So a deterministic approach would involve a project plan put together at the point of having learnt the least 18 months ago, and then measuring success as did you build the solution as per the project plan? Did you achieve the milestones by the dates? That does not optimize for outcomes. An emergent mindset would have an outcome roadmap. We'll have, for example, a 3-year goal, 3-year outcomes, 1-year outcomes, quarterly outcomes. They're all a hypothesis. This is what we believe. This is what we think. We don't really know because we can't time travel. And then you'll run some experiments, initiatives to test those hypotheses, and you will pivot and you will learn. That's an emergent mindset. There's a change in language. So with an emergent mindset, the language is, what have you learned? What are you going to learn next? How quickly can you learn it? And what is the outcome that we're going after? There's a change in the language rather than did you do the thing? It's what have you learned? What are you going to learn next? It's people, process, tooling in that order, not process, tooling, oops, we forgot about the people, which is a common mistake that organisations make, taking a view that it's just about rolling out a new set of processes. Nope. This topic is 80% culture, only 20% process. This is about behaviour. This is about what we recognise and reward, both explicitly and implicitly. And therefore, leadership guiding principles are super important because these are the behavioural guardrails. There are very many organisations that don't have leadership guiding principles. And again, this is for leaders at all levels. This is not just for a leadership team. This is for everybody. I'm going to show you on the next image some example leadership principles. The anti-pattern, or the anti-patterns, is change is for you, not me, command and control approach, inflict over invite, a culture of fear, and a lack of clear behavioural guiding principles. So here's an example of some guiding principles: optimise for flow, respond to change, organise for rapid learning cycles, organise around long-lived products, design for agility, break dependencies, don't only manage them, deliver product excellence continuously, not one size fits all, nurture culture, remove constraints, empower teams, work out loud, be transparent, and never stop improving. It's all about continuous improvement. So that's an example of some leadership principles for how we work. Number 5 out of 7 is whole organisation agility. To quote Ellie Goldratt, author of The Goal, a system of local optimums is not an optimum system. Most firms have a flow efficiency of 10% or less, which means that work is waiting 90% of the time. So this picture on the left, where work is grey, that is work waiting. Where it is blue, that is work being worked on. And if we look at why work is waiting, we have annual budgeting. We have role silo 1, role silo 2, role silo 3, role silo 4. We have 26 downstream dependent teams, and then eventually we have some learning and some value. So these are all handoffs, and that's why work is waiting. You'll speak to software engineering and they'll say, yay, we're so freaking agile. But you know what? It's making barely any difference, because you can reduce that blue bit by 50% and it will only have a 5% impact on the end-to-end lead time. So we need to focus where the work isn't, not where the work is, because if the work isn't, if it's waiting 90% of the time, that's what we need to reduce. That's the biggest bang for the buck. Impediments are not in the path. Impediments are the path. So we need to go from impediment to impediment to impediment. The anti-pattern is local optimization in one role silo only, e.g. IT. And number 6 out of 7 is build the right thing. Outcomes over output. So this is an anti-pattern. We hit our target of 60 arrows per minute. Watch out for the word velocity. Watch out for the word faster. That's why it's the word sooner, not faster. It's not about velocity. It's not about how many arrows did we fire. It's not about a feature factory. How many features did we ship? How many widgets did we ship? Building the wrong thing faster makes us wronger. It's a bad use of capital, and this is a common mistake that organizations make as organizations increase their agility and start shipping more. Watch out for just shipping for the sake of shipping. A self-fulfilling prophecy, agile headless chickens, a self-fulfilling prophecy of backlog replenishment, feature. That could be a suboptimal use of investment. It's not about how many features did we ship. It's about minimizing time to learning. So just watch out for velocity, watch out for faster. What we really want is we want to hit a business goal with the least amount of effort, with the fewest amount of stories, with the fewest amount of story points. We want to deliver the most value in the shortest time with the least amount of effort. So this is a shift. This is a shift from productivity to valuativity. For the previous 4 industrial revolutions, which have all been to do with factory mass production, productivity is the right word. The definition of productivity is the number of units of output per unit of input. However, in the age of digital, that's not a measure of success about how many stories we shipped, how many widgets we built, because they might not be the most valuable thing. It's about valuativity. And this is a word I've made up. It's not yet in the dictionary. Maybe it will be soon. And the definition is the most value in the shortest time with the least amount of effort, not the most amount of stories or the most velocity, the most amount of story points, balanced with quality, safety, and happiness. Because again, if you don't balance it with quality, safety, and happiness, organizations that do it badly, those things take a hit. So you need to measure all of them. So this is what we want. This is what we want to optimize for: the most value in the shortest time with the least amount of effort, balanced with quality, safety, and happiness, which is another way of saying better, value, sooner, safer, and happier. This is the shift from role-based silos with work passing, like a factory, mass-producing stuff, to multidisciplinary teams in value streams. So rather than the definition of team or team of teams being a role silo, your definition of team or team of teams is centered around value and around the customer. This is a shift from a focus on output. Did you build the stuff? Did you do the things? To outcomes. OKRs are a good way to measure outcomes. This is a shift from temporary teams to long-lived teams, forming, storming, norming, performing, and stay together. These are stable teams, stable, not static teams, so you can get to high performing, you get to understand the unarticulated needs of the customer. And this is a shift from a focus on milestones in a Gantt chart to learning and value. The definition of success is not, did you build the thing by the date? The definition of success is, what have we learnt and have we realised the most value in the shortest time, balanced with quality, safety and happiness. The target state pattern here, and this can take multiple years to get to this point across an organisation, is we have value streams. So in terms of how people organise, we have multidisciplinary teams aligned to the flow of value. And this is like playing rugby rather than a relay race. In our multidisciplinary teams, which are the circles with the multiple colours in them, we have multi-skilled team members, and we move up and down the pitch together with the ball, not passing the baton, not a relay race. I've done my bit, over to you now, not my problem. Nope, we move up and down the pitch together, and we succeed or learn together as a team. And we have long-lived teams aligned to long-lived products, aligned to long-lived value streams, aligned to customers. So, for example, this is a financial services example. This is a bank. We have the investment bank in the middle. We have equity trading. We have research. Those are all long-lived flows of value. It's why we're in business. Above, we have a retail bank in the same organisation. We have the retail bank division, and within that we have savings. We would also have current account. We would have tax-free savings, maybe. We might have mortgages. So we have our long-lived flows of value for the organisation we're in, and that's supported by technology. Some of these products are business products. Some of them are business and tech products. And we have shared services in yellow at the bottom. So here we have platforms. This could be HR, it could be data, it could be finance, it could be payments, it could be settlements, depending on what industry you're in. We have procurement is another example. Marketing is another example. We have shared services, and these shared services support the customer-facing value streams above. And the reason for organising like this is to optimise for the soonest time to value in the context of unique, unknowable work. We're moving up and down the pitch together, minimising time to learning with all of the skills we need to be able to get the job done rather than handoffs. And then on top of that, we apply our outcomes, our think big that we're going after. So we have our strategic outcomes, which are multi-year. We have our business division level multi-year outcomes. We then have our subdivision outcomes we're going after, and these might be annual, for example. And then we double click again, and we have our quarterly outcomes, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And this is what provides a shared goal for the multidisciplinary teams. So the quarterly OKRs and the annual OKRs and the multi-year OKRs, these are shared goals for multidisciplinary teams. And this is what makes multidisciplinary teams proper teams, because there is a shared incentive. There's a shared goal which we will succeed or we will intelligently fail or learn together as we try to achieve these OKRs, not separate objectives coming down role-based silos, because then there will be no multidisciplinary team. We have to have a shared incentive, a shared goal. If we have a shared goal, we can then have empowerment, because we've got high alignment to the shared goals. So we can now be empowered within minimal viable guardrails. The teams should be empowered with, here's the outcome to go after. Now you go figure how to go after that outcome. You go figure as a team. Not as used to be the case in previous ways of working, in previous industrial revolutions, where people were handed a job order, a card, which said exactly what tasks to do and how long to take. Order giver, order taker. So it's away from order giver, order taker, passively waiting to be handed a task list. Instead, as a multidisciplinary team and teams of teams, we figure out within the control environment, within the guardrails, and within the shared incentive, we figure out together how we're going to optimize for that outcome. And there will be common platforms, common policies, common standards that we need to adhere to. So it's not the Wild West. We need to get the right balance between autonomy and alignment. So again, the language I've been using is minimal viable guardrails. Not one size fits all, but sensitive to your context. So on the right hand side, with the alignment of OKRs, and to be clear, it's aligned, not cascade, we optimize for the most value. And when this is set up in tooling, we can see very clearly how our work that we are doing, which might be a daily task or an hourly task, we can see how that aligns to strategic intent. And we are best placed to innovate because we are closest to the customer at the team or the team of teams level. So this is a target state pattern. We are not funding projects. We are not funding OKRs. We are capacity funding people. The bulk of investment in change is in people, and we are capacity funding value streams. The goal then is to maximize the value that you get for your capacity level of investment. And you will have a view as to the, what value you're going after, because you've articulated that in your desired outcomes. You've articulated that in your multi-year, your annual, your quarterly OKRs. And it should be a rolling roadmap as well. So there should be nested cadences of reflection, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually, where the outcomes themselves, the desired outcomes themselves, can pivot as we learn. And the experiments that we're going to run, the output that we're going to generate to achieve the outcomes, should also be pivoting as we learn more. So we have agility. And we can load balance between these value streams. My learning is no more than once a quarter. Once a quarter, there might be some new regulation. There might be something new happening in the market. We might want to invest slightly less in one area and invest more in another area. It's very hard for people to be fungible. It's you can't spin up and spin down quickly when it involves people. So if this is not something you can do in a frequent cadence anyway, my learning is no more than once a quarter. And even then, you've got 6 months to 12 months of kind of ramp up time, relearning time, learning the new context, learning the customer. So it's not something that you can do a lot of particularly easy anyway. So we have capacity funded value streams. The anti-pattern is not being value stream aligned, a focus on predetermined output over outcomes. And another anti-pattern is water scrum fall, big upfront planning, sprint, big bang release of some new value. That's also an anti-pattern. Number 7 out of 7 is go slower to go faster, or you will end up going slower whether you like it or not. Incentivize continuous improvement. Warning, if you don't schedule time for maintenance, your equipment will schedule it for you. Don't be too busy pulling the cart with square wheels to have a conversation about the round wheels. Nearly every organisation that we work with or talk to, people are generally too busy being busy to improve. And improving daily work is as important as daily work. Impediments are not in the path, impediments are the path. So we should be continuously improving how we do what we do. It is a case of upgrading the plane while we fly it. We both have to continue delivering value at the same time as improving how we deliver value. And that is equally as important, because standing still is not standing still. Standing still is going backwards quickly. So quick recap. Number 1, focus on outcomes. Better value sooner, safer, happier, for example. Achieve big through small, not big through big. Invite over inflict. Start with the champions. Not one size fits all. Don't standardize practices. Leadership behavior will make it or break it, and it's people over process. Whole enterprise agility. Focus where the work isn't. Build the right thing. Outcomes over output. Value streams, OKRs, and it's all about continuous improvement. There is no end date. It's not a transformation program. You're never done improving, and be the best at being better. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. At that QR code below, there is a link where you can sign up for a Slack channel to be part of the Sooner Safer Happier community. We have some public meetups, and thank you very much.